What's up, everybody? It is the Thegoal60 here, and we're going to be talking about the Big 12 today in this video. Now, the Big 12 is only going to have one video where the other three conferences I've already put out and released. I had one on each division. The Big 12 doesn't have that. So if you haven't already watched the SEC, the Pac-12, and the Big 10, I invite you to do so. Now, without further ado, let's jump right in. We've got 10 teams to talk about, so I'm not going to have a ton of time on each one. But with that said, the first one, the winner of the Big 12, in my opinion, is a team that I'm very high on this year, and that is Texas. Now, in the years past, there's been people have been very high on the last couple of years, and they haven't lived up to that. This year seems to be everybody's a little bit down on them. Not necessarily saying they're going to be a bad team, but just not really give them the hype, and I think that's perfect for this team. I think they're going to be very good, and in fact, I have them going undefeated, 12-0, 9-0 in the conference. I have them with 7 returning starters, including their quarterback, on both sides of the ball. It's the same core coaching staff, but they did add a co-offensive coordinator with Herb Hand, who come from Auburn and was the offensive line coach at Auburn last year. They were +1 in turnovers. I look for that to even get better. And projected stats, I have 135 yards rushing, 280 yards passing, 115 yards given up on the ground, and 275 yards given up in the air. Now, if they can get that number for the defensive passing down, this team is really going to be stout. Even with that number, I have them going undefeated. The posted number on this team is 8.5, and therefore I'm going over. I'm taking it over 8.5 on the Texas Longhorns. Now, the next team is a team that I actually feel like could be finishing second like I have them, or actually I can feel like they could be a little bit worse. And I don't think they'll be too much worse, but I think they have a lot of questions. And the main question, in my opinion, is the quarterback. This team I'm talking about is Oklahoma. Now, their quarterback is, he's coming in. He got drafted as a baseball player back in the summer. And he has a $5 million contract waiting on him the second he stops playing football and gets out of school. So if you think that this kid is going to come out and just give it everything he's got every single play, he probably will until he gets that first hit in the mouth, and then he's going to start letting go, start playing a little bit more conservative, and therefore I don't think they're going to have the production as the season goes on as they will at the start. So I have Oklahoma with 6 offensive and 6 defensive starters returning. Same core of coaches. Of course, Lincoln Riley was in his first year last year. They were +3 as far as turnovers. I have them putting up a lot of yards, especially at the start. I don't think they're going to be putting up near as many towards the end of the season. It would shock me if they do, simply because of those reasons I've been talking about. I have them 225 yards on the ground, 270 yards through the air, 150 yards given up on the ground, and 255 through the air given up. So therefore, to me, that's good enough for 11-1. But like I said, I honestly feel like they could go 10-2 or maybe even 9-3. But I feel like really with the projections and just knowing them, 10-2, 11-1 is more realistic. Now, their team total given out is 10, so it's right there on it. It's not far enough away, not large enough differential for me to have a lean or a play with. The team I have coming in third is actually a team that I feel like could finish third. I really feel like this is going to be a good year. They get their quarterback back from injury, and if you want to scare your kids, just Google 2017 Will Greer's finger. I promise you, it looks like if he's waving at you, he's pointing at the door. It's crazy how much that looked terrible. But either way, he comes back. I've heard that he's passing the ball just as good, which was a big relief to me because I want to know how he was gripping that ball, with that messed up finger and getting it back from having surgery and such. And right now they return 7 starters, including the quarterback, on offense, 5 on defense, same core of coaches. They were -9 in turnovers. I look for that to get drastically better. They have 155 yards projected rushing stats, 285 through the air. I have them giving up 200 and 245, which is good enough for 8-4, 6-3 in the conference. I like this team. I think they'll be a little bit better than they were last year. Now, their over-under is 7.5, so it's not far enough for me to have a play, but I think Will Greer and the West Virginia Mountaineers will be a lot better as far as overall team performance than they were last year, even though I only have them going one game better than last season. Now, the team I have coming in fourth place has got a lot to, fill in the gaps for. They lost their quarterback they've had for the last couple of years starting. They lost some really good wide receivers, which is their offense. They put up a lot of yards, a lot of points, and they try to outscore people. Now, they do get some 7 returners on defense to go along with those 5 offensive starters coming back, but their defense has never really been that strong. So even with a lot of starters coming back, yes, it may get a little bit better, but I don't think it's going to be just drastically better, even with 7 returning starters. They did get a new defensive coordinator, though, with Jim Knowles, who was a defensive coordinator at Duke the last 8 seasons. So he's going to add a little bit better style there and hopefully get that thing on the right track. They were +2 in turnovers, so I think somewhere around that, maybe a little bit less this season, according to how good their quarterback is of holding on the ball and not throwing interceptions. I have them projected at 160 and 270 as far as yards. I have them projected giving up 125 and somewhere around 270 on defense. This is good enough for an 8-4 season, which is very good. Now, their number is 8, so obviously we hit it nail on the head. Not going to be making a lean towards that at all. I could easily see it going either way, 7-5 or 9-3. I have it right at 8-4, so I wouldn't touch it. Now, this next team in the 5th spot is Iowa State. Now, Iowa State had a good year last year for Iowa State. 7-5 is a really good year for them. I think they actually get a little bit better this year. I know a lot of people thinking they're going to go back down. I don't see them getting drastically better, but I do see them having a little bit better year. I think they've got a really good coach, and I think that's going to continue. They bring back 6 on both sides of the ball, including the quarterback. And they do have a new offensive coordinator, or are going to have, but they haven't named that person yet. And I don't know if that's going to be more of the coach is just using that as he's going to be the play caller or who's going to do it. I'm not sure there, but I look for about the same production. They're +5 in turnovers last year, so it should be a little bit around the same, maybe a little bit less than that this year. I have them projected 130 and 250 on offense, 145 and 215 on defense. And to me, that's good enough for also an 8-4 season and 5-4 in the conference. Now, their total right now is 6.5. That's a game and a half lower than what we have, but it's still not enough for me to call a lean here. I like to have at least 2.5 games differential between what I have and what Vegas has set the line at. Next up, we have a team that's probably a little bit lower than what most people will expect them to be, but they did lose a lot of seniors, and that is TCU. So TCU returns 5 on offense, 6 on defense. They have the same core group of coaches that they had last year, and they were +6 in turnovers, so I look for that to be about the same. This is a very defensive-minded coach, and I feel like they're going to be focused on turnovers just as much as they always are. As far as projected stats, I have 150 and 175 on offense, 115 and 250 on defense. To me, that's good enough for a 6-6 season. I have them being very mediocre, going to a bowl game. It wouldn't shock me if they went 7-5, but I don't think they'll be any worse than 6-6. And when it projected out to that, that's what I kind of got a feeling at before I even went through all their stuff. Now, their total is at 7.5, but like I've said before, that's not enough for me to take the under. I need it to be a little bit higher than that for me to feel like taking the under on that. So TCU finishing in 6th place in the Big 12 at 6-6. Next up in the 7th spot, we have a team that I feel like is going to make a lot of improvement this year. And simply even getting to 6-6 where I have them is a big improvement of what they were last year at 1-11, and that is with Baylor. Now, Baylor brings back a lot of players, 9 on offense, 8 on defense, including the quarterback they had last year. They have the same core of coaches. Matt Rule is going to be a good coach. He stepped into a firestorm there, and he's got a lot of rebuilding to do with all that's going on, the culture there. He's trying to change a lot of things. He's trying to get players back on board, even, trying to get close to what they were a couple years ago when they were doing so well, and also make a lot of changes as far as the university at Baylor is making a lot of changes. So this is more than just football. This is everything that's got to do with Baylor University. So Last year they were minus 10 turnovers. I feel like they got better at that towards the end of the year, and I feel like that'll continue to get better as we go along. Projected stats, I have 120 and 275 on offense, 170 and 235 on defense. That to me is good enough for a 6-6 season, and they are posted at 6, so it's right on top of it once again. Now, next up in the 8th spot, may be probably the most shock that you'll hear is in my entire video, and it's probably a little bit lower than what most people thought, and that is Kansas State. Now, Kansas State returns 8 and 5, and they out of that 8 offensive starters, they do have the quarterback back. So when I projected this, it did shock me. Wouldn't shock me if they did go a game or so above what I have them, but I don't feel like they're going to be as near as much as what some people are projecting. They do have a new offensive coordinator who has been here the last 5 years. He just is stepping into an offensive coordinator role with Andre Coleman. They have brand new defensive coordinators who are, one has been here before, which is Blake Sealer, and then a new one who's come in from Tulsa with Brian Norwood. So a brand new defense and offensive coordinators, a complete overhaul there. As far as projected stats, I have 190 and 175, and then 120 and 300. So offense versus defense, as you can see, they're going to be giving up a lot through the air, in my opinion. And that, to me, has them at 4 and 8. So I know that feels like it's low. It probably is a little low. It'd probably be more like 5 and 7. But either way, it's underneath their win total. And this one, I will be taking the under. Their total is at 6.5. And for what I have projected at 4 and 8, that's 2.5 games below. So I'm going with the under 6.5 for Kansas State. Next up in 9th place, we have Texas Tech. Now, Texas Tech, I feel like after this year, they're going to be getting rid of their coach. And I feel like he has stayed good enough just to be 6-6 every year and just hasn't really done anything besides that. Now, this year, they do have some people that's on them. And mainly because of the defense. Their defense has consistently been weak. But this year they do return 10 starters, so they can only get better, I would think. But not that I don't have them getting that much better. They return 6 on offense. They have brand new coordinators on both sides of the ball. Kevin Johns is the offensive coordinator. He was at Western Michigan last year. And Clay McGuire, who comes over from Washington State, as the defensive coordinator. Last year they were +3 in turnovers. I have them projected at 125 and 275, but then giving up 160 and 275. So to me, that's good enough for a 4 and 8 year. Their projected total is right at 6. It's not enough for me to make a lean on, but I feel like they're going to be at 4 and 8. 5 and 7 is probably going to be a stretch in my opinion. And last in the conference is Kansas. Now, when Beatty, I believe it's David Beatty, got hired for this position, I really thought that this was going to be one of those things where he built it up, and he just hasn't done much there. So I feel like with him getting a brand new AD and Jeff Long, who comes over from Arkansas, this spot, this is going to be his last year at Kansas. Now, it wouldn't shock me. I'm going to go ahead and make a prediction that would not shock me here if Jeff Long comes over and he actually makes the same hire he did at Arkansas and gets Bielema to come over, Brett Bielema to come over with him and be the head coach at Kansas next year. It just seems like too good to be true as far as just looking at it on paper. I feel like that may be the plan, though, later on as the season goes on. But this year, they do return a lot of starters, 9 on offense, 10 on defense, including their quarterback. They do have the same core of coaches. They were minus 13 last year in turnovers. You cannot win a football game with minus 13 in turnovers. Projected stats, I have 120 and 175, 180 and 270. Therefore, I have them going 3 and 9, and they are posted at 3 wins. So it's right on top of it. And therefore, I have Kansas finishing last at 3 and 9. With that said, that's everything I have for the Big 12. Please, if you enjoyed this video, hit that thumbs up button. If you agree with something or disagreed, comment. Let us know. Let us know if I went over any of your favorite teams. Let's talk about these things. I may be wrong on some of these that you feel like. I may be completely right. I don't know. Let's see what you think about it. And let's discuss some football because we're right here on top of the season, just a few days away by the time this video gets posted. But thank you for taking your time to watch it, and I'll see you in the next one.
60% of the time, it works every time.